I'm so sorry. I was running late. I had to run a couple of errands and it took longer than I expected. Okay. So, all right. So, where are we right now then? Um, are we talking about election salaries perchance?
I think
Or are we talking about the report? So, just so you know, I added a bunch of stuff, working doc, here it is, to the report, if you want me to go through it.
sure.
Okay. And
I,
then I'll talk about election salaries in a second, or what stuff I have on it. So, do you see safety of election workers?
yes,
Okay.
Yes.
Everyone see that all right? Again, let me just apologize. We're going on a trip tomorrow, so I went to the doctor and then I ran errands and, okay.
you did well to get here then.
No worries.
Yeah, I hate
Martha,
to
it's a
waste your
little
time.
on the screen. It's a little small. I don't know if you can blow it up a little bit.
How do I do that in Google Docs? Someone
Hmm.
help me out here?
Yeah, see that
Or I can do
100%?
this. How's that?
That's
There you
good.
go.
Okay.
Much better.
Okay, so this goes through all of the things that we've talked about. So last time I presented to you on safety of election workers. So this is, I wrote a little statement to go with this. That was just basically from everything that we had been talking about and that I'd talked to you. This is saying, so what during the chairs meeting that at least two of you were there on the 15th or whenever it was, Leslie talked about that there wasn't so many problems in North Carolina. And she was basing that on the Bridging Divide initiative. But we do have other data. For example, so the Bridging Divides, I don't know how many of you went to the presentation. A lot of that was just general violence in the country, right? Oh, here, let me put this in the chat. If you want to follow along on your computer instead, that might be better. Let me see chat for you. But anyway, a lot of that was just general violence. And so when I saw their presentation at the election science meeting in May, I asked them specifically for North Carolina election violence. And so then I got the raw data, and it didn't look like there were that many events. But if you look at Jason Roberts' data, so remember he was one of the first presentations we had. He had some things about that was from a survey that he had done of the election director. So I put these in here, and we have a copy of that study that we can include with the report. Next, so these are some tables that came directly from his report and then some of their impressions here, and then tables taken from Roberts and Greenberger. Then what I did was I put a Bridging Divide thing in here, which talks about some of the events, but it's really important to note that they said this is local officials, which I clarified with them when I saw them. Right. Okay. So the next thing is these incidents did not just occur around the 2020 election, according to the Brennan Center for Justice report, which I attend a monthly meeting of local election officials. And so the Brennan Center presented some of their data. This is actually a group of California election officials that I go to. But you can see that the Brennan Center for Justice just released a survey of local election officials, and this is national. 83% say their annual budget needs to grow to meet administration and security needs. At 38% nationally are experiencing incidents, and that there has been an increase in reports of threats and harassment, but this is, I should probably clarify. According to nationally. So this isn't just North Carolina, but I went in, since it is just like brand new, hot off the presses data, I went ahead and included it. If you guys think I should take it out, obviously I will, but okay, so let me move on. So the Brennan Center also said that many local election officials have taken steps to address their own safety. Okay, I'm gonna speed this up because I want to get to the election salary bit in a bit. And you can look at this later and make comments in the document. Let's see. These are all of the recommendations that I mentioned in the meeting. So when you go through the document, you're going to want to look at these. So this was the last meeting when I presented the research that I pulled together about election safety. This is a lot of stuff that I had told you about then. So I'm sorry to go fast. Oh, and these are all footnotes. So everything I did was based very much on research. So the next thing that this document does, oh, and I see, oh, good, Catherine, I'm glad you looked at that. There has been an increase in workload for local election directors, but I also note that salaries vary dramatically. I'm sure it could be written better. And I cannot see what her comment, oh shoot, what did I do? I'm so sorry. I can't read her comment. Catherine, what is the comments?
Yeah, if we want to back up a little bit to the safety and security,
Okay, back to there.
Um,
Here I am.
I thought that one thing that we should maybe discuss is, and it doesn't need to be today, but an order for the recommendations. And in my mind, it's like targeting the root causes first, the people who might be perpetuating the threats and intimidation.
Okay, so sorry, I'm going to run through this really fast till I get to the recommendations. Okay, so, okay.
And then the actions that the GA would have to take, right? Because those are some of the maybe the most difficult recommendations to implement. And then having ones about like the de-escalation training kind of towards the bottom. So what are the recommendations that would have the biggest impact on lessening the threats and violence at the top? And then some of the more like, here are the types of trainings that will enhance the feeling of security and safety by workers. And I also wondered, do we have the opportunity to present these to some elections directors for their feedback? Potentially not before July, but I would think that that would be really important to hear their thoughts on.
I think if we could get it after our July 15th meeting, as soon after, that might be a sweet spot before everything gets very hectic, getting ready for the general.
An idea.
Get some feedback, because I think we need some feedback in some other areas too.
I couldn't agree more. I do have an idea. The idea is this. I have already paid to attend the election directors training in August.
Ooh.
So yeah, well, the reason I'm going is because they are doing a training session that's a de-escalation training. And a friend of mine is on a grant that is piloting that program right now. And they're going to be presenting at the conference. So Karen had asked me, well, maybe she was trying to get me in for free. She's like, well, why don't you present something? And I'm like, well, I don't mind paying, one, but two, I mean, maybe this is something that should be presented so that we could get feedback there. So I could check with her and then let you guys know. Because Catherine, I absolutely think you're right. Like, this is why I was sort of sad that Sarah wrote, oh, that's the news. Sarah wrote an email, Levere, the Brunswick County Director had said, wrote an email, and she basically said, I'm so sorry. I am so busy and I need to prioritize the election first. And I just can't do this right now. And you've seen that I haven't been able to attend the meetings. So I wrote her a message. I'm like, well, most of the heavy lifting is done, trying to, but I didn't want to pressure her. Because I know, but I loved having her on this because she could say, at least, and she's the president of the Election Directors Association, right?
Yeah. Well, you may have an opportunity there while you've got them corralled to go ahead and present this and take advantage of it.
Yeah.
I think that's your opportunity.
Well, so maybe that's what I should do.
Because they're all going to be there from the 100 counties, right? Surely.
And where
well, I
Sarah
think
might-
so. I'm
Where
sorry,
Sarah
Kathy.
might still be able to contribute is, asking her to review this at a certain point, or can you recommend, 5 directors to do, sort of like a pilot group with, yeah,
Oh, I could do like a little focus group or
a
something.
focus group, yeah.
Oh, that's a really interesting idea.
And if you do a focus group, get them from
All over.
5 different types of counties. You'll definitely want a rural, you want a medium size, I don't think you need Mecklenburg and Wake, but one of the two.
Mm-hmm. And you could look at who responded to the civic education survey and choose some people from there, since they already have indicated they care about giving their feedback on things. But yeah, sorry, I didn't.
Well, the other idea, what I thought you were going to say is get the people who didn't answer the civic education survey so we could get the data from them. In fact, I don't know why I didn't think of that. Consider, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so sorry to rewind a little bit there, but if we want to
No.
get
This is
back
great.
to career development, yeah, we need a little bit of a narrative problem statement at the beginning of that one.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to write that if you need somebody to write that.
Oh, that'd be great. Well, so what, you want to start with these, or do you think we should go ahead and start with these now? I can just move them.
Oh,
That they should consider or should we wait and not do that?
what do y'all think
Thoughts?
about reordering those recommendations under safety and security?
And reordering them to like prioritize the most important ones at the top. Is that what we're saying?
So she's saying the things first the state legislature does that would have the most impact. And then let's see.
They'd all have impact. It just felt a little off to me to start with.
I know, I just kind of threw them in there and I figured if you guys wanted to change them around, you could. So I think this is great.
Yeah, I think the highest impact ones first makes sense.
What about this? Protecting the personal information of local election officials.
Yeah, should be up there somewhere.
Let me see, fund some of the safety efforts, or at least have a grant fund. And well, now this is a quote from one of the reports that the federal government, probably the Bipartisan Policy Center, because they've been pushing for the federal government to kick in some money for local election administration. The federal government should establish a separate and safety. So what's the best use of our time right now, though? Because we still have to get to the salary bit. Should we wait and do that? we can make I could do something similar to what I did for our priorities, which was I made a survey. And you guys voted as to the ordering of the priorities.
I think that would work. Why don't we
Yeah,
just do that?
Do you want me to do that then?
Yeah,
yeah, that's an easy way to do it.
And that way we don't have to do a survey. And this is just for the election violence one. I mean, really, one of my undergrads put together the research, and there was a ton of stuff about what interest groups who are working in this space recommend, what other states are doing, and that. So I really literally just put them all in there, and I was hoping that we could sort of order about the order. Good idea.
And I was wondering, like, as we're prioritizing these, in addition to like potential impact, should we also consider feasibility? Like, I'm thinking some of them would be more simple and easier to do than others, and giving those kind of more preference. Does that make
sure.
sense?
And yeah, it does. And also, do we know if any states are further ahead on this topic? And
That is a good question.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna,
What's
so
the
you can
best
still
we
see
can-
my screen. The one I always go to is the National Conference of State Legislatures, because Wendy Underhill is my hero or my heroine, and I want to do election safety. Let's see if we can find. Okay, state laws providing protection. So poll workers have been subjected to threats, accusations of crime, and leaked private information, doxing. They also do this other thing called, what is it called? Is Jennifer here?
yeah, it's where they swatting.
Swatting? Yeah, I think it's swatting. It's frightening. Okay, let's see. 10 states have criminalized intimidation and or interference with election workers by establishing incarceration and fines for offenders. Maine requires election workers to take classes in de-escalation tactics. Arizona, California, Oregon, and Washington allow election officials to be included in the confidentiality program. So the other thing is, just so you know from last time, Jennifer brought that up, that there are lists for people who are like domestic abuse victims, and they can put their names on these lists. And so she had something that I asked Rachel to put in the our folder, some information about that. So we probably need to circle around and find that. Let's see. So these are the only ones I'm seeing them mentioned. The other thing they do then is they go state by state. But I think what they do is they kind of evaluate who's doing interesting things.
And I bet none of them would have a problem with us looking at their programs and piggybacking. I'd like to
No,
see
I'm
some of the
sure.
de-escalation
So
tactics.
well, okay, so again, Karen Bell, the state director, is working with a group that has a grant from, so there is an effort from the Bipartisan Policy Center and the oh, holy mackerel, ETI. And I can't remember what ETI stands for, but they put a lot of money into grants for various things like this. They are working on a program in North Carolina that I'm going to see something about. But yes, and I think part of it is de-escalation training, which we talked about, which is why I want to find out more about it, and which is why I'm going to go to their meeting. But yeah, so
I just had a continuing legal education course, and the speaker was a cybersecurity expert, and he said he would be glad to give these training classes.
So can you please write an email to, this will help me, Shara, because or Rachel, I'll ask Rachel to do it. Let me look and see who's in charge. Oh, I have to go to the shares. Let me stop share for a second. Let me find you the name of the chair of the Cybersecurity Commission
Oh,
or
okay.
committee. Because that's an awesome idea. And I think Jennifer's in charge of that one. I think that's her coaching job.
There's James Hardaway and Stephen Tate.
Okay, what she said. Thank you, Rachel. Isn't she great?
Stephen Tate,
Yes, Stephen Tate.
Okay, perfect.
I'll get the name and contact info of this guy. He was very knowledgeable. He seems to have been in all levels of government cybersecurity. So he's just he seemed to be the point person that would be excellent for this.
Okay.
And also kind of in response to Greg's idea about thinking about ease of implementation, I don't know how hard this would be to do, but I wonder if we could come up with some sort of like color-coded indicator, you know, I don't know what red, yellow,
I
green.
like that we did that actually. Ted
Hmm.
Stilley on my other committee did that, where so we had a report about disability access, and he attended a couple of things, but there's like hard things to do. He had them like ranked. That's a really good idea.
Yeah, green for easy, yellow for red
Yeah,
for hard.
maybe orange instead of red for
Yeah,
challenge.
red may mean stop, no go. So orange for hard.
That's perfect.
Yeah, and the other thing that strikes me about the all that great data from NCSL is, you know, indicating where there was bipartisan support for some of the bills that were already passed. It doesn't have to be a whole section, but I mean, just a line even by.
No, that's right, because that's interesting, because I guess we haven't talked a lot about feasibility. I mean, I guess the question, I mean,
It could just be a line, maybe in the.
do they don't
about
have
bills.
that in there, do they? Is
Well,
that a question we would have to ask them, the NCSL, or if they know? Or there's another one called the Election Lab.
I think you could just
Uh,
look up the bill and see who voted. I mean, this first one in Washington was 49 yeas, 0 nays, so that's unanimous.
Okay, which one are you, oh, the one at NCSL.
See, yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry, it wasn't the first one, but the bill in Washington State, I just clicked
So,
on.
oh, I'm sorry, let me go through, I don't mean to get everybody dizzy here, but let me see. So we can just look it up like this. Duh. Now, does this,
A 1 day. Passed by the Senate, passed by the House. So 1 day in the House, but.
okay, so let's put in a couple of notes. So we need to get.
Yeah, I think with those, any of those GA ones, like mentioning where something has already passed and if there was bipartisan
Where is it
support, I
fast?
think makes a compelling case.
Were there any states on that list that are considered more balanced politically.
Indiana,
That
Well,
has,
I mean, it's,
Arizona.
I just think
Ma- Maine.
reading the political leaves, I think it's necessary in this area to get people to sign on that might not otherwise.
Yeah.
yeah, I guess that's true. If we say, well, California does it, we'll get
Yeah,
some
we're gonna,
fine, won't we?
yeah, I'm just anticipating that.
It's a good point.
Virginia,
That would be a good one.
that's a good bill too. An officer of election shall be eligible for protected voter status. It looks good anyway. Oklahoma,
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, that's nice. Huh.
yeah,
Well, so maybe we have we can highlight certain bits. And then in the report itself, but then include maybe all of this in an appendix, like all of this information about what laws it passed in other states. So like we highlight that Oklahoma passed. We
Mhm.
highlight that, you know, Virginia passed. We highlight that, let's see what my fine home state did. What did we do, Kansas? Wow, nothing, not a thing.
No,
Okay, we
yeah,
don't
not
highlight
Wisconsin
that.
either.
There's Indiana. I think the way you present it like this, and so we're not singling anyone out so much as just presenting what people have done that have done something.
Well, so I'm just saying, you know, I'm thinking about what this report looks like. And if we put this in the body of the report, people are never going to get beyond it. Are they? So we want what they're going to read.
We could, I guess what we could do is just name the states that have laws on the books and then have a link where they can go and get this information.
Mm-hmm.
You know, though, I've heard that there are some people who think that the National Conference of State Legislatures is liberal, which I've never thought they were. I just thought they laid out what states do. Maybe in their model legislation, I don't know. So the question is, you know, I don't know who, honestly, and I have no idea who even really thinks that. This is like, I've heard people say that ALEC is the conservative NCSL and NCSL is the liberal NCSL, right? Again, I've been going to the NCSL for ever since I started my career in 1999 to get what are states doing. So I think we want to be really careful there too, or at least thinking on what are people gonna, maybe I'm just full of it, but we don't want people to think what is overly conservative or overly liberal.
Yeah,
So
I do think the fact that it seems like, you know, a handful of, at least if we're talking about legislatures and governors, it seems like a fairly balanced mix here, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
well, I mean, they just looked at what every state did, right? So it's not like they're trying to say, oh, everybody, you have to pass this, right? I
right.
mean, they have Oklahoma, they have Vermont, right? So we're not talking, they were only picking one. It's just that,
Just a list. It's just a list of what states have actually done something and how they did it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really nothing political about it.
I'm just saying the link might be seen as.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, and you're probably right if there's that kind of viewpoint out there about both organizations.
Well,
And if
one,
you
Okay,
just,
so
if you
I
just,
have-
I was just
I
gonna say,
have
if you
this
just
written down.
summarize this, because it'll be much shorter, and then you can just reference it. You know, I don't know that someone's gonna go down and read the reference, but anyway, I don't think that's a big deal. But I think summarizing it, maybe by type of laws too. Like the following states have passed laws that do X, you know, maybe grouping them and just having a summary, like a sentence, really. The other thing that might be interesting to post, if you did it in like a little summary table, might be to list the states and then in parentheses or in another column, have who controls the legislature. That could be interesting because I think it's going to be a mix, right? Republicans and Democrats.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking, so in Washington, it was almost completely, only one person voted against the legislation, according to what Catherine saw. But we don't know how democratic the legislature is there. So yeah, maybe saying, Ballotpedia has all of that information. We could say this state, this and that. Who controls the legislature? Maybe the balance and the vote.
Has that other organization, I think you called it ALEC,
Yes.
have they listed what states have done?
Well, I don't know. Okay, so bear with me while I Google them. Let's see.
Oh, interesting.
So honestly, I haven't really, I think the only thing I've ever looked up on here was ranked choice voting. Because there was a whole bunch of legislatures that had been, well, a goodly number of state legislatures that have said ranked choice voting, they didn't want it. And that was the only thing that do you see on here? Elections? Am I missing it? Or voting? Hmm.
That Center to Protect Free Speech jumped out.
Yeah. Hmm.
What's the one about criminal justice in the center?
Oh, civil justice?
Criminal.
Oh, criminal justice. I'm sorry.
I wonder, I mean, it's always great to give credit where credit is due, but I wonder if in this list of recommendations, we just see, is there a bill that's similar? We mention it and link to the original bill, and then just in the footnotes, credit NCSL, for more information on which states have passed legislation.
That'd work.
Because like what I start to think too about perceptions of whether something is liberal or conservative, like our whole thing is part of the Carter Center. So that's probably raises
You're not
more.
wrong. Okay, let's move along on this, because again, I just wanted to go through this fairly quickly.
So getting us back to career development.
So you're gonna write
I'll write
narrative?
an opening narrative focusing on retention, workload, and salaries. I read just the first part of the CPP investigation. It's really good. The third part,
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? So they have the 3 stories. So just so you know, I linked the NBC story about turnover. And then I put in a couple of quotes that I thought were good. right? These are, and so here's the 3 stories, the links, or two of the stories, but the third story is easy to get through in either of the first 2. So I got into, I'm throwing stuff in, and I figured we'd talk about who might write this up. So there's a lot of stuff to look at. Okay, so this is also from the CPP stories. Because I thought it was relevant that Chris was quoted in this. So Carolina Public Press gave a lot of attention to the way that Florida does salaries, and it is more centralized. And somebody said this, I guess Chris had said a system like Florida's might be problematic because state and local governments are typically cash strapped. So I just wanted to note that. They also interviewed Jason Roberts and said election directors' pay should be bracketed to other jobs in the county, which it often isn't. In some counties, election directors, this is also from CPP. So this was, so she had talked, Mayor Scherer.
It's pronounced Maher.
Maher, thank you.
Mhm.
She's never corrected me when I talk to her. She should. Maher, she talked to a couple of state legislators, as you can see. So, this Orange County legislator said that legislators could easily provide funding to supplement salaries. So this is only one aspect of this whole problem, though. But before we go any further, so recall that I sent you the pay from the most recent fiscal year that I could obtain it. And the comparisons to the planning director, and I'll have to dig it out. I put it in the folder, though. I'm sure that Rachel fell over backwards, shocked, because I actually figured out how to put something in the folder and didn't ask her to do it. Right?
I'm very impressed.
Let's see, where is my infrastructure committees? Wait, this is not the.
So also, I think something that's helpful about Google Drive is if you go to recents, it's really easy to find documents you've just worked on.
Well, I know,
Okay.
but I have so many projects going that doesn't help me.
Ah, got it.
It would be nice if there was some organization on the state level that got funding and that these election directors were hired through that. And I guess salaries then based on the number of voters you're dealing with.
Okay, so I didn't take a lot of time to study the Florida system, but I think that's something similar to what they do.
It's so piecemeal in North Carolina the way it's
Yeah.
and it's somewhat unfair to the rural counties.
Well, so
And I love this idea to compare it to other top directors.
that's okay. So going back, sorry. So this is where so this is where in this spreadsheet, but this isn't, I could do some sort of graph, right? That would show, here's the planning director, here's the election director, here's the probably public health, I think is what I picked, because public health directors have also gotten a lot of the same blowback, at least they did during COVID. So I have a friend who has done research comparing the hate that election directors got versus the hate that public health directors got in 2020. So that's why I picked that in planning director, because total bullshit. I just thought this was a really busy job in any county.
What,
Um,
what exactly does a planning director do?
Well, I could be dumb and say planning. Maybe Jennifer, why don't you tell us from your experience in local government, what does a planning director do?
So the planning director is all about urban planning, zoning, streets, street design, where industrial zones are versus residential, planning for walkability and safety and all that kind of planning.
Okay. So someone in a big city is going to be busier probably than someone in a rural.
Exactly.
Yeah, often
And-
in a rural setting, often the planning director has 3 or 4 different hats, and that's just one of the things that they do. But in an urban setting, it's a full-time job.
Yeah, obviously.
Well, that's interesting because this doesn't say whether these folks are part-time. We know, I'm trying to remember which one it is. Hope County maybe has a part-time Hope County. Where the heck? One of the counties I think was part-time. So do you want me to create a graph that is per, so I could do something, I could divide their salary by the number of, this gives population. I could do it by population that they provide right here. Or I could easily get registered voters and divide it. Notice that they also have the number of years in position. So it may be I'd want to do something like a weighted, I need to sit and think about what it would be, but somehow factoring in the fact that, say, Michael Dickerson has been here since well before I arrived in Charlotte, and he's Mecklenburg County's election director. Let's see, what did they say? How long has he been here? I got here in 2006.
You asked about Michael Dickerson?
There he is, 23.3 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time. That's a long time for that position.
Well, it really is. But just talking to him though, he doesn't, I had talked to him before about election violence, and he said that, it hasn't been a big problem in Mecklenburg County, but he's also very careful about what he shares and says. So I don't know, so so basically you're sending me, you're assigning to me, and this is great, something that compares some sort of visual that compares the election director. So in the salaries, in the salary data that you can get from Chapel Hill, the School of Government collects it, so it's very easy to download it. And it's they have all the different county government positions. Is there one in particular that you would want me to compare it to? I'll throw that to Jennifer. Or should I check with Suzanne Leland and see if she could tell me what she thinks? She's our MPA director. But what do you think?
What is a comparable salary for an election director, you mean? What's the
No, not their salary, but to say, this is this much level of work. Who is a director that we could compare to see if they're being paid in a way that's, what's the word I'm looking for? Representative of the kind of work they do. So comparing them to other directors.
I don't know that this means anything, but apparently there was a study done, and it was recommended that funding should be about $17.82 per voter. And that was like a 22, 23.
Wait, where was this study? I've not, okay, so I just finished a book about, we finished revising it after the reviewers had it. It's going to the publisher about election budgets.
Yeah,
And I
I'm gonna,
don't know this study. Whose study
Yeah,
is
I'm
it?
gonna
Is
have-
it Brennan Center?
I'm gonna have to go back and look because I just jotted notes down and,
Which committee did you hear it in a committee or was it something
no,
else?
I was just doing some research and looking and, this was the first time I had seen a figure put out like per voter.
Yeah, but that doesn't make any sense because that would mean Michael Dickerson would have an $11 million salary.
So,
Or budget?
yeah.
Oh, budget.
Oh, to be fair, Jennifer.
Total budget, that
Yep.
must be about right.
Yeah, funding
To
level,
be fair,
it
Jennifer, Mecklenburg County probably should get more money. He's just incredibly frugal. I think he's just super careful.
Yeah, I don't think this was about the election director. I think it was the full budget
Yep.
per county.
So,
Yeah.
I would push back on that because I'm not sure that we really know what that number should be. I think that you would have to, I mean, there's so many variables that go into what the budget should be. I think what we do know, as an expert in this area, what we do know is that there's so much variation
Mhm.
that it's almost inevitable that it's not fair. And clearly, many counties are underfunded. If you look across the country, the problem is though that like getting honed in on the figure that is, because there's so much sharing of resources across offices. And you know, like it's hard to hone in on that amount that counties are actually getting. We got them from audited expense reports that every county most counties in every state in the country are required to do, that got the amount that they spent for elections. And which isn't as organized as North Carolina.
I just sent it to you. This was
Oh,
This-
awesome. You are a
this is
peach.
from the North Carolina Budget and Tax Center. I just sent it to you.
All right. Well, so, you know, if I get started talking about that though, I'll probably talk for hours.
Okay.
So maybe I'll first, as soon as my book is published, which who knows when that's going to be, because it has to go through all of the stuff that they're going to do, editing and everything. And I'll be lucky if we get it by the end of the year. So I'm going to try and come up with I'm going to actually, you know, who I'm going to consult with is Nadine Gibson, because that woman is the queen of visuals. But let me think of a visual for the salary to present it in the report. Then, okay.
Oh, it's unlocked. Okay.
What was that?
Oh, that
we've
might have
got-
been my wife in the background.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Catherine, on succession planning, there is no research on this other than in other county offices, and that's my friend Suzanne Leland. And honestly, it wasn't until the Charlotte 2022 election science meeting that where I decided they needed to be talking about succession planning, and I asked Suzanne to come and give a talk. Suddenly everybody and their dog was talking about it. I think that there's a couple of guys out of Oregon, because I want to do this study and I'm just not going to have time, but there's a couple of guys out of Oregon who have started interviewing election officials about planning for who's going to come behind them. My thinking, you know, there's a woman from Florida. Her name is Lori. Lori, I can see her face. There's like people from well, what's his name in Wake County? Clearly planned for secession because
He
then
did.
he,
He did.
I
Gary
mean,
Sims.
it's like so obvious, right? Because then
I think he
Olivia
did
took
for a
over.
year. I think it was for a year. Gary Sims groomed
Gary Sims,
for
he
a
brought
year.
up, and I would start my interviews honestly with Gary if I was doing them in my spare time. It's not gonna happen, but I may have to pass that idea on to somebody else, but Gary, there's a woman in Florida. I talked to a couple of people in Kansas I want to interview. Because in Kansas, it's particularly problematic, actually. Because, well, for a lot of reasons. But this one woman, it's, so
Well, maybe for
there's
that-
nothing, but.
For
Okay.
that bullet, which I think is so important because it's directly connected to the turnover and part of training and career development, is just a paragraph outlining how this doesn't exist either in North Carolina or nationally. There are people working on it, but there should be more attention and funding to create a succession planning toolkit for elections directors, just like toolkits exist for nonprofit leaders and news leaders and leaders of higher education. There's a lot that's been invested in succession planning in other fields that elections could probably tap into.
It'd be nice if Gary Sims would talk to us. Because I'd like to know where I think he did a.
I just want to know what he did, right? Like, I'm sure he was mentoring her.
I do
I'm
know
sure he
something.
was.
I bet I know someone who could talk to us, and that is she's the coordinator for my zone. She seems to know a lot about what happens down there in Wake, the Board of Elections in Wake County. So she's infinitely familiar with Gary Sims and Olivia. I bet she would know something. I can ask her. Because he did a great job passing the baton.
So the group that should have funded the study, and I don't think they have, is the Bipartisan Policy Center. As I said, they got a big gob of money. And they've been, they've been doing, they funded a number of studies, created a task force, which I'm a part of, on workforce. And I need to, maybe what so what we need to write is outline just a paragraph. So I need to look into my research on that, but and look at maybe look more closely about what the Bipartisan Policy Center has on that. They're starting more on training now. Okay, let's see. All right, policy programs, and this was something that one of you all said during one of the meetings. Let's see. Oh, so then this little blurb went into like training. And so Sarah Levere wrote this part, which she wrote as like it's 1 o'clock. So maybe the thing to do is to wrap this up. Let me just go through this really quick, but I actually asked her when she resigned, I asked her, you had some really good ideas from the election directors about why training is necessary. And what they're going to be recommending. And so she sent me some things, which I just put in the report, which is all of this little bit here. And then this is where she said, this is what she said. In particular, Florida's association offers 30 specific courses that could serve as a model. But I'm going to also write that the Bipartisan Policy Center has partially finished a study on training all over the country. And then, okay. Just to let you know, Arizona has a fellowship program that was gonna be part of this. For training. Then we have a lot of our stuff about poll workers that we've been talking about. Some of it I have written out. So believe it or not, this election fellowship program, this might be in training, maybe should be moved up to training. But I talked to Keely, I talked to the woman in the Secretary of State's office who's in charge of this, and she could speak to us. But it didn't seem like we really had time for that. But they do have this training, this fellowship program, and she was telling me they had a lot of applicants for it. So I think that's a great thing to include, that they have this. So a lot of training resources or poll worker resources. That Leslie has put a lot of work into this. And of course, Shira has, were you gonna write up something about what you've done? Shira?
Sure, I can.
Maybe just a little bit to say that, we recognize this is such a problem that, Shara Blackburn started working with the lawyers, the Bar Association, to try and recruit more poll workers. The other thing that I think I skipped over that we said we were gonna do, and I'm not sure where it is in here, and I'm sorry, I'm going through this fast, is we were gonna have we wanted to recommend a library of resources. Remember, starting with the stuff from Wake County is the basis.
If we could
So I gotta make sure.
input all their training resources in this library would be helpful, especially those flow charts.
I'm just gonna write it here to make sure that we get it in here, but I swear I put it in here.
Yeah, I saw it earlier. It's in there.
Okay.
This was a comment I made earlier on, but one thing that I was thinking about, under the report template, it's what specific topics did your committee study?
Okay, I'm gonna go up to the top because I put this in here and started putting your stuff that you were talking about from the beginning. And so this has the template. Sorry, I'm sure this is making everybody dizzy. Just look away. Look away.
And like there's a lot of overlap here with certain things, but I thought it might be helpful to figure out like what are the best kind of titles or subheads for each of the sections. So instead of election violence, let's like have it be more asset based. So safety of election workers. Retention could be its own section where we just talk about turnover, salary, and workload. Career development, that could be where the library of information goes, the certification resources, the succession training, and then poll worker recruitment and training could be its own section. And then board member training, you had that at the very bottom as kind of like a subhead. I think it was board training and staff onboarding. But that might be too much for the committee to handle since we already have these very like solid and hefty topics. Do you all remember what the board training was about? There's no information.
Okay, should I go down to the bottom? Was it at
That's
the
the
bottom?
very last one.
Okay, everybody close your eyes.
Maybe it's just a like leftover note or something.
Oh. Yeah, that was something we had talked about and we just never got it developed. And I'd have to look at our priorities, which is one of the Google Doc things. I I don't even remember if it was a high priority one.
Let me share this real quick. I just got a text back from Drusilla when I was asking about this succession training. I was asking about Olivia and Gary Sims. And she said she didn't know how long she trained, but she knew that apparently Olivia came from another board of elections, another county.
Mm-hmm.
And the same was true of Gary, and he was excellent. He came from Wayne County. I didn't know that. And
I
so
didn't either.
and she suggested that a better person to talk to might be Spencer, which I've spoken to him. He's with the Board of Elections with Wake County, and he's now deputy director and has come up through the ranks at the Wake County Board of Elections.
Hmm.
Contact. I can give him a call. So they groom these people for, it sounds like it's not anything, I don't get the impression this is the type of job that they put out and then hire someone. It's from within and it's developed over time.
That's what Wake County does, but I don't think that it's my impression talking again,
Probably not
pretty
that way.
very qualitative and not, systematic. But it's my impression from talking to them that a lot of their recruiting for many of the places across the country isn't quite as systematic about the development of people as is Wake County.
Maybe this is part of what we need to look at and suggest.
I'm sorry, the what?
Maybe this is what we need to look at and suggest, that maybe in this kind of position, it does need to be more systematic. These kind of positions are not, they're for a really specific type of personality.
Right.
You got to be able to juggle.
Where was that? It was in pink. Let me see. No, I'm gonna have to do a control F. Well, okay. Let's talk. Let's figure out, since our hour is up, let's talk about why is this being so disagreeable. Let's not talk about why this is being so disagreeable, but okay, I'm gonna have to shut this document. But so what did you say about succession planning? I was gonna write it directly in the thing. So succession planning.
So I think that should be like the training and grooming can be a part of the career development section, as well as a note about succession planning and noting the absence of of plans or policies or toolkits for elections leadership to use.
The interesting thing though is also like so many election officials in the local election officials in the country are elected, and actually the chief election officer in the state. And so I think, oh, I'm talking to you like we're going to do this study. Any study though, or any, like, you have to think about that they're like, there's an element of politics, but also you have to think about who could run for, well, so with election directors, but we don't care because we're all election directors, but it is very political. And who might get hired in that position could vary. And they might have very little control, but no plans or toolkits. So, okay, so moving forward.
And then, so then my other question is I guess to repeat my question, the training for board members, is that something we want to build out or maybe decide not to include? Because unless I'm completely missing it, I didn't see any section or data about training for board members. And that might be a whole nother
Okay, so and I'm gonna look at it really quick. Is
thing to research and do and write about. I just don't know if we have time for that.
Well, you're looking at that. I got some more information, about Spencer with the Wake County Board of Elections. You know, he may be a good source because apparently he knows all sides of the operation, including recruitment, finances, and operations, and he's knowledgeable and articulate. He hasn't hopped from one Board of Elections to another like apparently a lot of these big county Board of Election directors do. See, I wasn't aware of that. And here's a question. Does the UNC Institute of Government offer a program for training Board of Election officials?
Oh, so there is a guy named Bob Joyce who has done their training for years, who's about to retire. So they when I signed up for that, so I they used to do the training.
Yeah, that's
From
what
what I understand, but
Mhm.
I don't know that, so I think occasionally, I think that Karen engages them to do some of the training, but I don't know how systematic it was. The very first training that I went to was in like 2007, and there were a big variety of people. Like I met the computer guys, the tech guys from Met County when I went there, and it was like my first time I ever met them. And it was an entirely Institute of Government organized thing. But like there was like the lawyer, what's our North Carolina's lawyer, Gannon? That person
Patrick, no,
gave a talk.
Paul Cox. Paul Cox is a lawyer.
Yeah,
Again, the PR guy.
right. So the state board lawyer gave a talk. But when I signed up for the thing that I am going to in August, it was through NC State. So I mean, it might be worth me just shooting Karen an email and asking her, because I did talk to her and she said, I asked her if because I'm interested in starting training. But the thing is, they have done it. And it's their space, I thought. So it's not just something I can just jump into, right? You have to be kind of, I feel like I need to be careful and not tread on someone else's space. And she had said that Bob Joyce was still giving them talks. She also said she didn't know what she would do without him. And indeed, I don't know, I remember him as being amazing and knew everything. And like there's a book that Michael Bitzer recommended for all of us that I think Bob had written. But I honestly don't know what their role is in it. I do know that Sarah Levere was saying that she thought they needed more training. So, I don't know. That's the bottom line, is that might be worth an inquiry to Karen. But so but the state board is very involved with whatever training they do. Oh, you know what I should show you is I have something in here from the state law that talks about when they have to have training. And in fact, I meant to talk about this and I was so crazy this morning trying to get ready to go to my trip. They're required to have training like in August before the election actually happens. And there's another time.
You're talking about election directors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
I'm trying to find it in my stuff here. Relevant NC election law, amazing. Okay, let me share this. Maybe I'll share it. Oh, crapola. Put this over here. Share. So yeah, this is probably something I'm going to want to link. So training, the State Board of Elections shall conduct training programs and election, so that suggested is the state board. Every county elections director shall receive training conducted by the state board at least as often as required in the following schedule. Once during odd number year before the municipal election, once during each even year before the partisan primary, and once during even number year after the partisan primary, but before the general election. Every member of a county board shall receive training at least once during the 6 months after the member's initial appointment. So this is probably what we should put into the report.
Yeah,
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the
so
citation.
we at least know all 100 counties are probably getting this.
Well, yes, but Sarah had something to say about that. Let me see if I can find it because sorry, that's what I'm going. Oh crap! Oh, where's the report?
Martha, I need to hop. I was
Well,
here.
actually, we all need to hop.
Yep.
Let me, you can go ahead and go if you want, but so I have a suggestion.
Let me know if you have any questions.
We will.
Thanks. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate your dedication.
Really, it's awesome.
Awesome.
Okay, so let me just, before we end the meeting, Catherine, seems to me like you have a lot of good ideas for organization and for, I don't know, some of the headings and making things look better. I don't want to put it all on you, but maybe before we all go through it, you would give make a new copy and then give it a once over and go crazy.
Yeah,
You are a pretty
wanna, like-
gifted writer.
I didn't want to start marking the document up because then it's so hard to read, even if you go into like editing mode. But I'd love to maybe make a copy and like organize the headings a little bit. And
I would love that.
yeah,
I
was
would
Greg
love that.
writing a problem statement too? I thought he volunteered to
He
do
wrote the poll worker one.
the poll work.
um,
Do we have that in there?
I thought we had what he had given us. Let me look again.
Oh
Hold
yeah,
on.
we do. Okay. And so why don't I can work on that over the next week. And then, yeah. What do you want to?
So make a copy and say one is like the original and leave it in the folder and then take this one and
Yeah.
so I'm going to be out of the country for a couple of weeks. I have a conference in Germany. I know, right? And so we're going to make a vacation of it. We're going to Switzerland. We're going to Zurich. We're going to Lucerne. I'm going to eat chocolate. We're going to go to Lauter. You can tell my head is tired. Lauterbrucken.
Oh, is that where you're going tomorrow? Germany?
Tomorrow. No, tomorrow I'm going to Zurich.
Oh,
Tomorrow. Yes.
Have fun.
So, thank you. So here's the other thing. I guess, I don't know, maybe you guys can give me some insights on the other committees. But I don't think the report has to be perfect right now, right? Because I think the steering committee is also going to probably the five of us will probably attack it and then come back to you guys with it. So my thinking is that, you know, while it doesn't have to be perfect, a lot of the content needs to be there. And maybe what I'm hearing is that we need to get back together after the July meeting and make sure that everything, all of our priorities, all of our things that we're recommending are in priority order. I did write in my notes, though, I'm going to do the survey. So so for the election safety of election workers, which is a very good insight, Catherine, that's excellent. But for that, I think that what we can do, I can do that survey, and if I don't get it done today, I'll get it done when I get back. On July 3rd is when I get back. So, but I wanted to make sure we have most of the information in there. But if you want to make it look pretty, I think that's great. And so, Shara?
Is the information I did on, poll worker recruitment in there?
I
There's a
thought
lot of
I
stuff
put
on
all of your
poll
stuff in
workers.
there.
Yeah,
Okay, because there's some additional things. I think that's where I put the additional things you were talking about, where. we can
Oh,
talk about
you sent me an
implementation.
email.
Yeah, implementation. I think, and I talked to someone that is a former, he played at Duke and he was an assistant coach at Duke under with Coach K. And we were at dinner with him and his wife the other night and talked about maybe approaching the ACC and seeing if we couldn't get some kind of public public service announcement with players,
Oh, I think that would be fabulous.
these different
About poll workers?
poll
So
workers. We need young poll workers. That's where you talk about retention. We don't have hardly any in the 20s and 30-year-olds. Very few 40s. It's all 50s, 60s, 70s, some 80s.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do, this is good. Okay, so where did you get this? I'm gonna put this in the document.
Got that in several places. I'd have to go back and look. How
No,
long?
I got it. I found the email. So if you're looking at the document right now, our document, I'm going quickly through it. And I'll put it at the end of poll workers. I'm going to put it at the end because right now I don't know that I have it in me to think.
yeah. Put it in there and I'll figure out in the,
So so what I did is I just cut and paste. This is a document at the bottom. Below are some suggested ways to recruit poll workers to work elections. Snowball recruiting. Adopt a polling place, targeted specific groups. But so here's the question though. Is this these are things that who does this?
Well, that's going to be part of fleshing out that particular section.
So.
So I'll just keep working with that section then.
Well, so Catherine, why don't you let, do you have the document, right, Shara?
oh, I
Or
thought you
want me-
meant, when you said who does this, I thought you meant like the election directors are overworked. Who's going to do all these things?
No, that's actually what I meant.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what
okay.
too. Yeah.
That's why I assume Shara, because, well, we don't want them to have to do what I think that I remember, and this may have been me, but may have been all of you as well. The election directors are overburdened. And to like say, well, why aren't you doing this, and this, and this? Doesn't seem helpful to me, right? So we've got so that's why I love that when Shara went and said, you didn't just say somebody should do this. You went to your bar association, you said, hey, let's do this.
And they're willing to do
Right.
it. They're willing
And
to
they're
do
going to do it.
Yeah.
And so if you can write a little bit about that to put in the report, that's what we want to, I think for this in particular, I mean, for poll workers and getting more poll workers, we just need to marshal efforts, but not give the election officials extra stuff that they have to do. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it does, because what you want to do is see, by going to Wake County Board of Elections, we were going to do the first little model, and then we were going to send it to the North Carolina Bar Association, which then that gets it out.
Well, then you need to, I would write that.
Yeah.
That's
And
perfect.
same with the ACC, that would go across the whole state.
Well, so we have I think there's a PR help. So we need to, if you could write me that in an email, I could send that to our steering committee and we could, would you mind? I know I hate to give you like 3 things at once.
No, I'll be
I know
glad.
you can handle it, but so write me an email so I don't mess it up of what the ACC is willing to do. Or who you talk to, and then I'll send it to the steering committee. So we have someone that's gonna be helping us with PR. And we're gonna be like raising up some stories about stuff that, that have things, such precise language that have come out of the discussions that the committee has had, so that we make it more approachable and understandable, and people start to see what it is that we've been doing. And so those are the kind of things we were gonna lift up.
Right, okay.
And I think the Carter Center is helping with this. So who's going to organize these? All right, guys, I cannot skip lunch or else I'm not gonna be able
Yeah.
to have my meeting
So
at 2.
Shara, are you gonna write something about the
I'm
Barbara?
gonna write an email to Martha, and I can put you on there too, Catherine, about some of the specific things that can be done right now, and that's including with, the bar associations
What you've done and what the plan is.
and, the COEs,
Okay,
the ACC.
yeah, CC me, and then Martha, while you're gone, I'll work on a separate doc. And then, we'll just have to review that before the 15th. And talk about it.
So Leslie is only gonna have. That's another thing. I have a family thing on the 15th of July, which got made around me, even though I had the 15 on the calendar. So I'm only gonna be joining that via phone. But I'll be there and I'm not sure what it's an all day thing, so I have to figure out when I should be there, but sorry. My life, crazy. But
I'm guessing-
Leslie, go ahead.
Oh, there's gonna be presentations from each committee,
Mhm,
what I'm guessing at that meeting, right?
mhm.
So we'll
So
just,
Leslie will only have about 10 minutes.
okay.
So we sent out a PowerPoint template. Shara, did you get that yet?
No,
So let me send it to you.
It's also in the Google Drive. I dropped a copy of the template.
Oh,
and
well, maybe
everything.
that's the,
well, maybe I do have it then.
so let me think. Who sent it to us? I mean, I could just forward it to her.
Rachel sent it to us, let's see. Yes, I do. June 13th is when it went out, right?
I believe so. That sounds right.
You have it then?
I have it.
Okay. Oh, so Shara, this NC budget and tax, I haven't had time to look at this report ever, but we took a quick look at this and some of this is not accurate.
Okay.
And at some point when we actually have time, this NC Budget and Tax Center, though Tyler Day is very smart.
How do you go about telling someone like this that their data is incorrect?
I don't know. I think that's why I avoided it. It seemed to me like so it's Mary Jo and Zach had looked at it, and the amount their spending per voters weren't the same as ours. So that begs the question of where they got that. Estimates of election costs with recommended levels. Well, actually, this is not unreasonable. Huh. I need to review, I actually, I need to review this more. I need to review this. I mean, the amount that they're saying here, they have it laid out on a table.
Okay, Martha, you
that
have to
pretty
eat
serious.
lunch.
I need to eat lunch. So
See,
And
Catherine,
get
you're
ready
gonna
for your
be.
vacation. You can review that stuff later
On the plane.
when you get back.
Oh, yeah, on the plane. Actually, I have to figure out what I'm taking on the plane.
Have fun.
Yeah,
All right, thank you all. I'm sure I'll be thinking about you all. And on the, let's see, my conference is the 27th through the 29th. I'll think about elections then.
okay. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Guys.
Bye.
Thank you
All right.
all. Bye.
Bye.